there's two worlds. There's the one the population live in, and that has a certain level of knowledge. And then there's another world in the same reality, which has a very different level of knowledge. And people like me uncover the agendas by uncovering that level of knowledge. That's that's what you work towards, uncovering what they know and thus what they plan. And if you're coming from that level of knowledge, you can predict the future, because the future is the agenda unfolding unless there's an intervention to stop it. And what you're trying to do is to take what you find here, communicate it with this world, the general population, so they see actually what's going on in the unseen, in the subconscious. So someone like Aldous Huxley and his book Brave New World in 1932, and people like George Orwell too, and people I've quoted in the books, insiders who years ago, like 1969, predicted things that are happening now in fine detail. But you look at Aldous Huxley, and he wrote in Brave New World about the end of parenthood. This is why parents are losing more and more power over their kids, more and more the state is controlling everything. And how humans will no longer procreate, but they would be produced in what he called world state hatcheries, through being incanted, not procreated in the way that we know. And because this other world, its level of knowledge allows it to project long into what we call the future, how the world is planned to be changed. And so it may sound fantastic to this world that someone in 1932 could know what's happening now and predict it in his book, Brave New World. But that's why these guys are so unbelievably accurate in predicting what's happening now, decades and decades and decades ago. And what Huxley was describing, and of course the Huxleys and Julian Huxley, his brother, was a big eugenicist, which is same as the Gates family, by the way. He was describing in 1932 in Brave New World where they want to go and where they're heading now. And that's the end of the procreating human. Now, that's why sperm counts are plummeting, and why they want to sterilize the procreation element of the human race. And this explains why we've had this explosion of transgender. I don't care what people do sexually or how they perceive themselves sexually. I have a simple philosophy: do what you like, so long as you don't impose it on anyone else. I mean, I'm about as liberal as you can bloody get from that point of view. But that's not what this transgender thing's all about. You know, I've been saying for years, if something comes out of nowhere and it's suddenly everywhere, it's the agenda. Someone's pressed a button on another stage of the agenda. And what they're doing is they're systematically confusing young people and children about their gender, who weren't confused before and wouldn't have been confused unless this manipulation to confusion had been implemented. And the process is to confuse gender on the road to fusing gender to the no gender human. This is where this is heading. Because once you don't have to procreate, you don't need male and female genders anymore. Because you're producing the human form from other means, like laboratory means, etc., that Huxley described. And thus you have a no-gender human. And this is where it's going. You're seeing the stepping stones to it. And to do that, first of all, you need to change the nature of the human body from a biological form to a synthetic biological form. And synthetic biology is now a very gathering and expanding discipline of science. But you also have to stop the form you want to replace procreating.
Well, human, for me, is a way of processing information. And we call the way this processing happens human. What goes along with that, unfortunately, and it's been encouraged, we are encouraged and pressured to self-identify with that form of information processing. and thus to perceive the entirety of ourselves as what we perceive to be human, when human is merely a ridiculously brief experience for our true self, our true I, which is consciousness. You know, I see one infinite stream of consciousness, and we're all different points of attention within that stream of consciousness. So you will be an expression of the same consciousness that I am, but you will, through your life experience and probably experience beyond what we call human, you will have a slightly, and in many cases, considerably different perception. But we're all points of attention, perception, within the same stream of infinite awareness. When we, as consciousness, forget form, just a state of being aware, when that awareness works through what we call a human body, the human body, I've been calling it now for nearly 30 years, a biological computer, and it processes information in a particular way. So if we just look at the foundations of this reality, and then we can come to this deeper look at what human is. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in the universe. What we're looking at is absolutely negligible compared with what exists, even in this universe, which is just one reality within infinite reality. Then we look at that which we can see, which we perceive as a visual reality, what we actually call the human world. And that is called visible light, and it is a fraction of the 0.005%. When we perceive the world around us, we think we are seeing everything that exists in the space that we perceive, when actually all we are perceiving visually is a tiny, almost laughably narrow band of frequency that we call visible light. And the body computer, is focusing our attention, a bit like looking through a telescope, it's focusing our attention on this tiny band of frequency. While we're in embodiment, if you like, we are having our attention focused within what you might call the five sense world. Can I see it, touch it, taste it, hear it? It must exist then. Which is where, of course, mainstream science comes from overwhelmingly. I mean, quantum physics has taken a different route, thank goodness, but mainstream science is constantly asking, can I see it, touch it, taste it, hear it? Then it must exist.